Menachem Sefer Mamar Vehu Oimeid Aleim Chof Cheshvan Shabbos Pashas Vayera. We are on page Lamed Beis. We are on page Lamed, chapter 4. Very quick synopsis. Up until this point, the Rebbe explained we're addressing the idea of karbonos here. We got into the idea of karbonos because the posik that Maimon is based on talks about the angels eating, the angels that visited Avraham Avinu eating, and the two interpretations in that eating, whether it was actual eating or it appeared to be like they were eating. So the Rebbe began a whole discussion about eating, consumption, and he got into the consumption of the human in terms of bringing the carbon. There were two types of consumption of the human being and the consumption of the mizbeach. Which of the two is greater? On the one hand, it seems that the consumption of the mizbeach is greater because it says Raza the Kurban Elad Raza the Insof. The secret of the carbon rises up all the way to the secret of the Insof, and that seems to indicate the bringing of the carbon, the sacrificial offering, onto the altar. On the other hand, we know that kapara, atonement, is only achieved through a carbon once the kohen eats. So which of the two is greater? So then we began to discuss the whole idea of karbonos, how the different parts of the Beis Hamikdash correspond to the different elamis, different realms, Atzilus, Viri, Yitzir, and Asiya. Beyond Atzilus, which is the Kodesh HaKadoshim, the Holy of Holies, Atzilus, which would be the holy part of the Heichal, the chamber, the main chamber of the Beis Hamikdash, and then the rest of the elamis Biyah, Viri, Yitzir, Asiya, represented in the courtyard, the exterior Mizbeach being Malchus of Atzilus. Bringing the carbon onto the Mizbeach means raising up the sparks, as it were, the divine energies, uplifting them up all the way to Malchus of Atzilus, and then turn the fire coming down from above, the lion that consumed the carbon, the fire from above, which is from Zoh of Atzilus, the 6 midas of Atzilus. And that's why it's called the consumption of the Mizbeach, the consumption of the altar, and not the consumption of man. Zoh in this paradigm is Adam. Malchus would be the Mizbeach would be represented up until Malchus, right? So therefore we bring it all the way up until Malchus, and then there's a reaction from above. This is basically what the Rebbe said until now. But now we have the central question that the Rebbe is addressing, and that is, we just finished saying a few moments ago that the secret of the carbon rises up all the way to the secret of the Ein Sof, which indicates that the idea of karbonos goes way beyond certainly Malchus and even Zoh of Atzilus, all the way to the Ein Sof. That's the question that Rebbe addresses here. Chapter 4, Ois Daled, page Lamed. However, we still need to understand the fact that we say that the ascent that is achieved through the sacrificial offerings is only in the aspect of Malchus of Atzilus, the lowest of the 10 divine attributes of Atzilus. What's the problem? We know, as quoted before from the Zohar, the secret of the Korban rises up all the way to the secret of Ein Sof, which means, what does that mean? Hainu, it means that the ascent that is achieved through sacrificial offerings is beyond the aspect of Malchus of the realm of Atzilus. To where? Ad Rozo de Ein Sof. Goes way beyond, until the secret of the Ein Sof, the infinite. It's not only beyond Malchus of Atzilus, it's beyond realms altogether. And indeed, this is indeed the reason why sacrificial offerings have the power to achieve atonement on a sin. What's the problem? Because although a sin means something which is opposed, the opposite of Torah and mitzvahs and commandments, and Torah and mitzvahs is something very lofty. It's something very great and powerful. How do you achieve atonement? What is this? It's a game. You said, okay, I forgive you. No, there's a certain dynamic. What's the dynamic? And nonetheless, despite the greatness and the great level of Torah and mitzvahs, which is so great that you've got to fulfill it, and if you don't, you're doing something important is happening here. So how do you achieve atonement? Through a carbon. Why? Because a sacrificial offering is beyond, it reaches a level which is even beyond Torah mitzvahs. You're accessing an energy which is greater, a level which is greater than the level of what? Of Torah and mitzvahs. Why is that? Because through the offering of the animal onto the altar, the physical animal is raised up, and is included in its source, in the world of Toyu, in the world of chaos, which is what? Which is totally beyond realms. It's beyond realms altogether. And through that, atonement is achieved. A little more detail, says the Rebbe. The Torah, he begins pnimis, because Torah is what? Is the aspect, is the idea of pnimis, interiority. Or mitzvahs, hein makifim, mitzvahs are transcendent. Aval hein makifim shel ala kelim. So in terms of Torah and mitzvahs, Torah is called bread, right? Mitzvahs are levushim. When you eat, you consume, you take internally. Mitzvahs, levushim, garments, surround. So although in Torah and mitzvahs itself you have the interior aspect, which is Torah, and the exterior aspect, or the transcendent aspect, more of a transcendent aspect, which is mitzvahs, right? Nevertheless, Toyu, which is access through what? Through bringing a korban, is even beyond the makif of mitzvahs, even beyond the exteriority or the transcendence of mitzvahs. The makifim, the transcendent aspect of mitzvahs, is such that it surrounds and hovers around the vessel, meaning to say, Hainu, shehim be'erech hakelim. They are relative to, there's a certain closeness between it and the kelim and the vessels. Masha'enken is the tayub. This is not the case when we talk about the lights or the energies of tayub, the world of chaos. They're so transcendent that they're even what? Beyond being makifim in the sense like what? Like mitzvahs are, where they are relative to the keli, which means they're completely beyond. And the Rebbe over here defines the idea of oiris merubim. We know that one of the elements of Toyu, central elements of Toyu, is that it was oiris merubim and kelim mo'otim, abundant lights and
fragile
or small vessels or few vessels. Meaning this, what does that mean? What does abundant mean? So abundant could mean quantitatively or qualitatively. It says the Rebbe, it's not only quantitatively. It's more of the same. In Atzilus it's X, and in Toyu it's Y. It's more of Atzilus. Atzilus is a shrunk down version of Toyu. No, the Rebbe says there's a qualitative difference between the Eretz of Toyu and those that follow it. This is the idea when we say that in Toyu the lights were abundant. The Eina Kavana Merubim Bekamas Levad. It doesn't mean it was abundant only merely in number, or in quantity rather. It means that it was qualitatively different. Meaning, Hainu, the lights of Toyu were completely different, at a different level, immeasurably different than the lights that followed it, the energies that followed it. The Hine. What does that mean? First, we have to understand how powerful are the Eidos of Atzilus, right? Which are also tremendously powerful, to the extent that we can't even relate to it now. It was so powerful that there was an element of it that had to be locked away for use when Mashiach comes. As the Rebbe says, even in the world of, in the repaired world, Chazal say, our sages say in the Medrash that the light that was created on day one of creation had the power. Adam Rishon was able to look from one end of the world to the other. The light was so powerful that he was able to see from one end of the world to the other. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean a quantitative? I don't know. The sun is, let's say, I don't know how many watts, for example. This was, I don't know, so many times more. So did Rebbe know? That's not the pshat. Move on. It's understood. When you say that it was so abundant and so great that Adam Rishon had the ability to see from one end of the world to the other through the power of this light, right? And the world was not fit for it to be used for its use, and therefore it was hidden away. It doesn't mean that it was more abundant than the light that we know now in a quantitative sense. It was a totally different being. It was a totally different type of light. It says that certain tzaddikim, when you would come to ask them for a, and the Chazal say the end of that Mamar Chazal is, where did Hashem conceal it? This light that wasn't fit to be used on day one. Where was it concealed? He hid it in the Torah. Certain tzaddikim, when you would come to ask them for an eitzah or a bracha, they would open up a Torah sefer, put on the glass, and they would look into the book of Torah, and then they would tell you why. Through that, they were accessing, as it were, that light, right? Now, obviously, when you're looking at the sefer, what are you going to see? Something that's going on in 10 years' time? Obviously, it's a different type of it's a different type of light, and you need a different type of receptacle, as it were, a tzaddik's eyes, as it were, to be able to see it, right? So it's not just that it's a more powerful light; it's a different type of light altogether, it's a different type of energy altogether. This is the meaning that the world was not fit fit to use it. What does it mean? Our frame of reality was not one which was fit for the use or could not handle this type of light. It was outside our frame of reality. This is already a light that was created within creation. From this we understood even more so. That when you say the abundant lights of Toyu, we're talking about a qualitative abundance. Hainu, meaning, right? When you have cause and effect. So the cause is qualitatively at a higher level than the effect. So when you say Eiris the Toyu, the lights of Toyu, relative to, say, to the Eiris of Tikkun, it's not just that it's greater like the relative greatness of the cause over the effect. No. It's of a different type altogether. It's completely beyond the realms. So in other words, what do we see from here? That Toyu is so much greater qualitatively, so different qualitatively, than what happens in the frame of reality of Tikkun, as a result of which Korban has the power to be mechaper, to achieve atonement for Torah and mitzvahs, because Torah and mitzvahs is within the frame of reality of Tikkun. Toyu goes beyond that. So what happens when you bring a korban? Since through bringing a sacrificial offering, we elevate the korban to such a level that it causes a revelation from the level of the abundant lights of Toyu, which are qualitatively abundant. Therefore, what is achieved? All the blemishes and all the chippings that came about through the fact that a person transgressed, the lights of Toyu, which are accessed through the korban, have the power to fill that. Right? So if that's the case, what's the result? What's the bottom line? The bottom line is, this is going into the channel, the idea of Roza de Kurban Elad Roza de Yisaf. The secret of the korban rises up all the way to the secret of Yisaf. And the korban, in other words, triggers a reaction all the way from where? Goes up all the way to Toyu, as it were, and triggers a reaction from there. So what are you telling me? It only goes up to Malchus of Atzilus? And Zoh, the lion, responds. The Zoh meaning the Zoh of Atzilus, the Midas of Atzilus, the divine emotional attributes of Atzilus. When we clearly see that the korban, the power of the korban is that it goes all the way up to the source of the animal in the world of Toyu, in the realm of Toyu, which is not only greater than Atzilus, it's way beyond, immeasurably greater, qualitatively different and greater than Atzilus, and because of that it can achieve atonement. So we have a problem here. How do we square these two elements of saying Groza the Korban Elad, Groza in itself way beyond, with the idea that Korban goes up to Malchus of Atzilus, as we explained earlier? And if you want to know the answer, you have to come back to another shiur.